Hello, my name is Elnaklah. I'm PhD researcher at University of Bath in Architecture and Civil Engineering. Today I'm going to talk about are green buildings doing enough and the role of green certification and gender differences on sick building syndrome. There is an increasing interest in how the indoor environment quality of green buildings can affect the occupants' performance and health. And the poor indoor environment quality of buildings can end up with the sick building syndrome. The sick building syndrome, according to the WHO, can be defined as a set of medical conditions or a group of medical conditions that affect the building occupants and disappear when the person or people is away from the building. These conditions included the cough, sore throat, back and neck pain and other symptoms. So the reasons behind the sick building syndrome is the physical factors of the built indoor environment such as air quality, ventilation, acoustic and lighting, and sometimes it extends to include psychological like stress or social network or physiological like gender differences. Are several studies have investigated the impact of gender differences on the prevalence of sick building syndrome. Some studies found that female workers usually had a higher prevalence of sick building syndrome symptoms, in particular symptoms such as dry skin, cough, or sore or irritated eyes, while other studies have contradictory results as they didn't consider the gender differences as a predictor for sick building syndrome symptoms. These differences can be attributed to biological or behavioral or social reasons. So this paper tried to answer these two questions. Do occupants in green office buildings have a lower prevalence of sick building syndrome symptoms compared to their counterparts in conventional buildings? And the second question is, do gender differences affect the prevalence of sick building syndrome symptoms in the workplace? Our methods based on a survey that adopted from the WHO covered 502 respondents from 13 office buildings are located in Amman, which is the capital city of Jordan. These buildings were five green buildings and 8 conventional buildings. The study conducted between summer 2017 and winter 2019. All buildings were offices, and they didn't report any indoor air quality problem in the previous. The questionnaires has two sections, covered the sociodemographic questions and the sick building syndromes questions that cover the three groups, mucous membrane symptoms, skin symptoms, and other general symptoms. The results shows that building type has no effect on the prevalence of sick building syndrome symptoms. While in this graph, we can see that conventional building usually had a higher prevalence of sick building syndrome symptoms, while the U-test here shows that the only difference was in tiredness symptom. Further, we calculate the percentage of occupants that had any symptom in the last 28 days precede the survey. And we compared this to the ASHRAE standard 62.1 threshold. We found that more than 20% of our participants in the survey had 6 symptoms, as we can see here in the table, for in the last 28 days of the survey. More than 20% of the participants for some of the time. And turning now to the gender differences, the results show that The female workers, as we can see here in the figure, tend to have a higher prevalence of sick building syndrome symptoms, while the man with new test shows that the only significant difference was in the cough and sore throat with negligible effect size, and these symptoms tend to be higher between the female occupants. As a conclusion, we had three main findings. The building type made no significant difference to the frequency of sick building syndrome symptoms except the tiredness, which was higher in the conventional buildings. And according to the ASHRAE standard threshold, both building types could be considered as sick building, and this needs more attention to the indoor environment quality of workplaces in Jordan. And female and male workers reported the same frequencies for most of sick building syndrome symptoms, and the only statistical differences was reported in the cough and sore throat symptoms among the female workers. And here is our references, and thank you.